Hi everyone. Welcome to Oceanside Chat, our signature interview series, featuring personal stories, thoughtful conversations, and the timeless wisdom from remarkable individuals. Each chat invites viewers into an intimate dialogue around leadership, innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship, revealing the human experiences behind big ideas. Real people, real journeys, shared to inspire and connect across generations. Today, I'm honored to welcome Rich Hua, founder of EQ at Amazon and worldwide head of Epic Leadership at Amazon Web Services. From his own journey to building one of the most impactful emotional intelligence program inside one of the world's most innovative companies, Rich brings a real combination of insight and heart. We will explore the why behind his work, the birth of EQ at Amazon, and what it takes to lead with humanity in an age of AI. Whether you're an aspiring leader, lifelong learner, or simply curious about EQ, there is something here for you. So, of course, I had a brief introduction about you, and the class actually had a full bio about you. So we all be looking forward to this conversation. But I like to start with this, like in your own words, who is Rich Hua?
Wow. I love that question. I'd say my life can sort of be described as from geeky guy to icky guy. I definitely grew up as a super nerdy kid, and now I found sort of ikigai, right? The purposeful, meaningful sort of thing that I can do that can really make a positive impact. A little bit about my story. So I was born in Taiwan when I was 4 years old, and I came to America, and I grew up in the Chicagoland area. And I had three things that were pretty challenging. One is I didn't speak English. Two is I was very socially awkward. And three is I had and have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So I was kind of a terror. I couldn't control my energy levels. In fact, I was so energetic that I was kicked out of preschool after one day. My teacher basically took me by the hand, took me home, gave me to my mom, and said, "Do not bring him back for a year. We literally can't handle this kid." So it was kind of a challenging childhood, and I experienced a lot of sort of negative emotions, things like anxiety or loneliness or disappointment. I didn't know how to make friends, especially in America. And so I did something that a lot of kids do. I decided to turn off all my emotions. I thought these are not serving me. I don't like them. Forget it. And then I figured out that I was actually pretty smart. So I thought, let me become a genius robot. That is my goal in life. And it seemed like a great idea. It was going really well for a while. I actually got straight A's in high school. I got a perfect score on the SAT. I got in every college I applied to, studied electrical engineering, computer science at Berkeley. And I thought, I'm on my way to being an awesome genius robot. But what happened was two things that screwed it up. First of all, I got married. And my wife really did not appreciate the genius robot position. She didn't really care about the genius part. I mean, it was kind of nice, but whatever. But the robot part was like really not, and she was not enthused about that. She wanted this thing called like emotional connection, empathy, vulnerability. I'm like, what is this stuff? So the other thing is I actually became a missionary and an evangelist for like 23 years instead of going directly into the tech world. And so from both a personal and professional perspective, realized I need to work on this other thing. And I read Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, back in the mid 90s. And I thought, this is the thing. It's emotional social skills. And so I really got to work at it, worked super hard, got mentoring, took courses, read a ton of books, practiced, and eventually became a lot better over time. To the point that people started coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I noticed you're like really changed in this area. Can you coach me? Can you mentor me? This is an area that I see as a gap." And so from C-level executives to new managers to people new in the career, I started coaching and helping people. And here we are, 1.3 million people later, actually. And I'm a living testament to the fact that you really can grow in these skills. And so anyway, I'm grateful to be able to share the story, grateful to be able to talk more about it.
Yeah, a quick follow-up, you have an interesting definition, genius robot. I think genius means really, really smart, but how do you define robot?
I define robot as basically not engaging in emotions, neither my own nor those of other people, because I considered emotions at the very least a nuisance and at the very most a detriment to my efficiency and success.
Very interesting. Yeah, so I think this will come up later on when we talk about AI, because I'm curious about, do you still view AI as a robot or is more than that?
Uh,
So we leave that later. But what is at the heart? You have told us some stories and your struggle with emotion and how you actually self-taught to become very emotional intelligent. But what is at the heart? What do you do? And why did you choose EQ at Amazon to begin with?
yeah. So at the heart of it is I saw how much emotional social skills help me to be happier, healthier, more successful, both personally and professionally. And in a little, I guess I'll add to the story. So after doing the ministry part for about 23 years, I pivoted back into the corporate world, and I went to Oracle for 4 years, and then AWS for the last 8.5. And I looked around and I saw lots of really, really smart people. Many of them smarter than me, but they had varying degrees of EQ, and I saw the gap in their ability to get promoted, to be a high performer, to be happy, to be good with their customers, all sorts of stuff, their leadership. And it was very rarely IQ, like they needed to be smarter, right? It was their social, emotional skills. And so I saw how much benefit it brought to me. And I thought, I could make a difference. I could actually help other people. So I started sharing ideas, sharing emails, and I started developing courses that can train people in these skills while I was at Oracle. And we got to several thousand people and they got some benefit from it. And that AWS, it's just blown up into obviously many, many more. And so, again, back to my quote from earlier, you make a living by what you get, you make a life by what you give. And I thought I've been given to a lot and it's really benefited me. And it was really meaningful to be able to give to other people as well. So, it's been amazing to see so many people become happier, healthier, more successful. And in the process, most of them also become kinder and more empathetic because they realize, well, that's actually part of being more successful. So it's been very fulfilling.
So you're doing a transformation from a robot to human. Hopefully,
Yeah,
it
you could
happens
say
with a
that.
million people.
You could say that. And another way of saying, I mean, that's only my own journey, but for everyone's journey, I think of it as helping everyone optimize themselves to be able to experience life and flourish and help other people around them flourish, to be the best version of themselves. And oftentimes there's some IQ involved, but there's a lot of EQ involved in that process.
So you were titled as a worldwide lead for Epic Leadership. So could you explain Epic? What are each letter stands for and why?
Yeah. So Epic is a program that helps upskill leaders. And when I say leaders, I mean that like really everyone's a leader, right? Or a potential leader. So I really think of everyone, but it upskills leaders in emotional intelligence and interpersonal dynamics so that they can lead with greater empathy, purpose, inspiration, and connection. And thus the acronym EPIC. And these are sort of the outputs that I think about when you work on the EQ skills. You can actually output by behaving in ways that actually display these qualities.
Do you have a story or two that where Epic Leadership transformed a team or organization or individual?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I have so many responses from people that are incredibly meaningful. And I'll do sort of a amalgamation of a couple of them. Like there's so many leaders who said, this has transformed the way that I think about leadership. I thought it was all about efficiency and delivering results and optimization. And these EQ concepts have literally changed the way that I look at what it means to be a leader and what it means to be a human, right? And it's made me a better version of myself, right? Other people have talked about. I was able to do a training for the global CTO of a multinational healthcare life science company. And I went in and I did this workshop, and her comment afterwards to me was, you've really helped me to be able to lead a more innovative organization. Give me some ideas, but you've also helped me with my family because I'm going to go back and actually interact with my children differently because of what I heard here. And I thought, I'm from AWS helping a CTO at one of our customers talk about innovation. But her response was, you help me with my family life as well. And I thought, wow, I mean, you don't hear that every day, right? And from a sort of more global macro perspective, another customer that I have had a chance to work with is the CTO of LATAM for another very large multinational company. And we wound up having a chance to do like a full day workshop with his leadership team, about 20 people. They loved it, thought it was really valuable. And then we did a follow-up workshop with the next 50 leaders in his organization. And then we deployed a scalable self-service program that's sort of like social learning along with self-service to the other 100 of his leaders. And so and basically all managers in his organization, essentially 150-ish people, got some very deep EQ training. And his comment to me, I just talked to him last week, he said, people are sharing more vulnerably about what's really going on at work and in life. People trust each other more. It's obvious. You can just tell, like the way we converse is just different. People are more willing to share mistakes and things that they learn, and it helps us be able to have more of a learning culture. And you know what? People are just happier, and they say they want to stick around. They want to be here, and they've talked about how these programs have helped them feel a sense of more connection with their coworkers and desire to be in an organization that really values this. So anyway, those things are priceless, right? And obviously we're helping them be more innovative because that is part of what I do as an AWS leader. But it's also really making a positive difference in their organization and their lives.
Oh, wow. I have so many questions for you. I have to take one at a time. So, so the first one, right? We actually haven't got a chance to talk about it in this class, but we will, next time when we meet together in person. But I'm curious about your perspective about this question because everything has two sides of the coin, right? I mean, obviously having more EQ, help the happiness and performance and relationship, as you mentioned earlier. But do you see any downside that having too much of emotional intelligence?
Yeah, the answer I'd say is no. There's not a downside because emotional intelligence is the intelligent use of emotions. So there are basically sort of two extremes. One is robot. I have no emotions. I show no emotions. I don't care about them. I don't care about mine. I don't care about yours. The other is I'm super emotional and I wear my heart on my sleeve all the time and I don't have regulation and I take in everyone else's emotions and I'm so empathetic that I burn out. So neither are healthy. Neither are emotionally intelligent. There's a bit of a myth that people say, oh, this person's really kind. They're really empathetic. They really feel me. They may be emotionally intelligent in one regard, but maybe not emotional intelligent in another one because they burn themselves out or they care too much or they do not have high standards because they're a little too sentimental. So actually, this gives me a good opportunity to define emotional intelligence. I use Daniel Goleman's sort of framework. There's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So these are like 4 dimensions. And you may be high on one, but low on another, right? So let's say you're super, super empathetic, but you don't regulate yourself very well. That's a great candidate for burnout because you feel everyone else's and then you don't know how to set boundaries. So that's not actually emotionally intelligent, at least in one of the domains. On the other hand, you may be like, well, I don't burn out because I don't care about anybody else's emotions. Well, okay, so you don't have the social awareness, but then you also, people don't think you care. And how are you going to be an inspiring leader like that? It's not going to work. So it's modulating depending on the situation, and knowing how to have emotions work for you rather than against you in the context that you're in.
Mm. The other question I had was you wear 2 hats. One is worldwide head, for Epic Leadership. The other one is EQ at Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit about both? Like, are they the same thing, different thing? And
Yeah,
they all
I'll give
sound
you.
beautifully great.
This is a great chance to talk about the origin story a little bit, and then that'll actually explain it. So, I've always been passionate about helping people develop their EQ because I've seen, again, the gaps and the benefits. And so I came to AWS 8.5 years ago. I served as a account manager actually for a year. And then I moved over to be the global business development leader for cloud database, right? We have this amazing database called Aurora, and there's Aurora Postgres. And it was during that time that I basically started delivering talks about emotional intelligence to whoever will listen. It was sort of basically completely off the side of my desk. I was giving a talk here, giving a talk there. And then I got a big break at our sales kickoff in 2019. I submitted the topic of emotional intelligence for sales success. And one of the executives said, "Oh, I'll sponsor it. Let's give this guy a chance." So they put me in a room for like 100 people, right? They're like, "Let's see if anybody shows up for this very strange topic of emotional intelligence." And what happened was the day before the talk, the organizers called me up and said, "Oh my goodness, so many people tapped on wanting to attend your session. We're going to have to move you to a bigger room." And they put me in a room for 1,000 people. And over 1,000 people actually showed up. It was standing room only. And I delivered the talk. And I wound up actually getting a standing ovation. And it was the highest rated and highest attended breakout of the entire sales kickoff. So that gave me a data point. I think I'm onto something here. And it also made the leadership of AWS go, "This guy's onto something. Like, what is this?" And so I got more opportunities. And then in 2020, I did it again. And like 2,000 people showed up. And people started coming forward and saying, "I want to help. I see also that this is an opportunity for me to grow and to help my team, my colleagues grow. What do we do?" And so I said, "I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it. So let's all have dinner." Funny enough, it was like 12 people. So we basically wound up having dinner in Chicago and talked about the formation of the EQ champions. And they became the sort of basis of people who wanted to practice, develop, and share EQ skills across Amazon. It was just like this loosely knit group of passionate people. Well, so basically what happened is that EQ group of champions has now grown to over 800 people across all parts of Amazon globally, from new Amazonians all the way to some of our SVPs and most senior leaders. And they're all passionate about bringing more of it because they understand the value. And then again, this is totally off the side of my desk, right? And so that was the formation of EQ at Amazon. It was just people who were interested and wanting to grow in it and share it. And then people started coming forward and saying, "I want to help deliver some of these talks and trainings. You know, I have a passion for speaking, for communicating." And so I said, "Sure, I'll teach you how to do it. I mean, that'd be great." And so we formed what's called the EQ Evangelists. And that is 100 people all over the world who deliver talks just like what I do. And that's how we've been able to reach hundreds of thousands of people with live sessions. And so it sort of just became this community. And one of the sort of secret sauces was I started sending out emails. You know, I thought Amazonians are, they all love to learn. You know, they're really into improving, growing. We have a leadership principle that we really try to live by. It's called learn and be curious. And so I started sending emails about emotional intelligence and success, like tips, right? Some of them for me, others are just articles that I read. And I started sending it to a few people, and then they shared it with their people, they shared it with their people, and then we formed a mailing list. And now it has 70,000 people on it. And it is the largest opt-in mailing list at Amazon. So that's the community that is formed. Now, again, all of this happened while I was doing a different job. I was actually helping the world adopt Aurora database. That was actually my job. But I was doing all this as a volunteer, and all the speakers, all the champions are also all volunteers. We became a community of practice. So 3.5 years ago, I thought, I'll bet you this could actually be a full-time job. And so I wrote a 6-page document. That's what we do at Amazon to basically propose the idea of the job, the role. And so I did. I put it before my VP. He said, "Wow, heck yeah, let's do it." And so I formed the Epic Leadership Program. I became the head of it. I hired a team, and we started offering it to customers as well as Amazonians. And so I basically created my own job, my own role, my own program. And I don't know if this would have happened in any other place beside Amazon, because we're so into experimenting, trying things, doing novel, you know, sort of ideas and activating them. And so anyway, that's the difference. The Epic Leadership Program is specifically sort of for customers and external, whereas EQ at Amazon is this community practice within Amazon. And of course, there's a large overlap, but that's how it differentiates.
Wow. So you basically have a full-time job, and I suppose all in Silicon Valley, high tech, it's not a like 9 to 5 job. You got to work very hard. On top of that, you
Yeah.
found this community, you found this, yeah, you initiated this program. And And you got the support
Yeah,
from your leadership team.
I did. Yep.
What a fantastic story. And I'm curious about between the robot version of Rich all the way to this like Amazon leader, for all the EQ. What happened in between? Like, how did you taught yourself? Did you have mentor? Did you learn from someone? Like, what exactly that process maybe? We all wanted to duplicate that.
Yeah. So I think that the very first thing that's important is motivation. It's people actually realizing there's something missing and there's a reason to be able to change and grow. Otherwise, it doesn't work, right? Like we're too busy to do things that are nice to haves. That's just the bottom line. And so it really has to be, wow, this is actually essential to something I really value. I want to be happier, I want to be healthier, and or I want to be more successful. And whatever versions of that, right? I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better parent. I want to be a better friend. I want to be more effective at XYZ, or I want to stave off burnout, or I want better work-life harmony. Whatever it may be, that motivation's the driver. And for me, it was my marriage and my job dealing with very deep emotional, spiritual things in the people I was working with. I'm like, I'm not really effective here. Like, there's something really missing. And so what I did was one, I read a lot of books. I love to read. And so for me, I love ingesting information, and that was eye-opening. Two is I surrounded myself with people who were either practicing it and or better at it than I was. And that way I could both observe and also get ideas and mentorship. I heard Lou Holtz, winning Notre Dame college coach one time, he said, the two things that will change your life the most are the books you read and the people you know. So I thought, let me read some good books. Let me surround myself with good people, and that will help me. And the third thing is I did take courses. There's a course over at Stanford that I took on interpersonal dynamics, and other ones that I took in various places that I could, sort of more in a structured way work on those. And then the other one is just practice. I mean, lots and lots of practice and failing as I went along. I actually love this definition of failure, FAIL, first attempt in learning. But sometimes it's a second, third, fourth, and fifth attempt in learning. It's the fact is, as you go, it's deliberate practice, right? You have to continuously strive to work on it at the edge of your capabilities, get feedback and advice, and continually iterate. And I'm a work in progress. I mean, I'm the worldwide head of epic leadership and EQ, but I'm not. It's not like I'm always emotionally intelligent. Like just yesterday, I had a meeting where somebody's like, "Yeah, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but that was not the most empathetic thing you did right there." Like, hey, just because I teach it doesn't mean I do it all the time. Thank you for pointing it out. I will strive to do better. So, it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah. Um, so you are a living example because a lot of people talking about emotional intelligence is something just inherited when you're born. You
Mm,
either have it or you don't have it, right? So you're in the living examples is we can actually all learn about it as long as
yeah,
we have enough motivation and then we have enough resources, or we're seeking for resources and opportunities.
yeah.
So we can acquire that as well. It doesn't matter when and how and, at what age.
Besides tuning in, how else can we help support Oceanside Perspective, and how else can our audience give us more encouragement?
If you like our content, we love to produce more for you. But I would say maybe three things. The first thing is really subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on LinkedIn, please follow us. We are very active on all the social media platforms. So please become our community. I think join us, that's the big thing. Secondly is, if you love us, I'm sure the people surrounded you would like us as well. So please share, please tell more people about what we do, the mission we're trying to achieve across generation again. So everybody is included. This is a very inclusive community. So please share and tell other people about Oceanside Perspective. The third thing, I think, come back to resources. I would really appreciate if you would consider that to donate to our cause for a great mission and for more content that we're going to create and benefit our community.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Helen, and for talking to all of our Oceanside Perspective community.
The research actually completely busts the myth that it's like you either have it or you don't. Emotional intelligence is a set of skills. Now, there is a genetic component, and depending on who you ask, the numbers may vary. But Jamil Zaki over at Stanford, one of the leading experts on empathy, from his research, he believes that empathy, which is kind of the embodiment of a lot of EQ skills, is 30% genetic and 70% based on your decisions and your experiences and your skill set. And so I find encouragement in that, because I think I was born genetically with a very low amount of empathy. And so I've had to work on the other 70%. But the fact is, hey, let's say you're low or high genetically, that's fine. It is what it is. But the other part is the majority. You can absolutely grow in those. And so, when people say, is it nature, is it nurture? That's the wrong question. There's no dichotomy. It's both. Obviously, they both affect you in some way. And so I think that's profound, and it gives people hope, because again, I work with a lot of I'm a geeky guy, and I work with a lot of geeky guys, whether they're men, women, or other, and it gives everyone hope that hey, absolutely you can if you put the effort in.
Yeah, you brought your wife a few times into this conversation. I'd love to hear more about it. I mean, first of all, thanks to your wife, that we have Richard and will reach to 1 billion people with you. So
I'll pass on the thanks afterwards. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious about, is there a few people that are really important in your EQ journey, and maybe starting with your wife?
Yeah. I said earlier, right? Like the books you read, the people you know. There's this other phrase, I think attributed Jim Rohn. You will be the average of your 5 closest relationships. And so you should pick your relationships well. And is that a law? No, but it's generally true. And so my closest relationship, is my wife. And boy, I tell you, she's incredibly emotionally intelligent on the empathy, self-awareness, all that side. And she has had to work on her self-regulation, right? And so she's got work to do, but I was low on pretty much everything. So I needed to kind of learn from it. And my self-regulation is probably pretty good. I was able to kind of get stuff done no matter what I felt, because I, ignored all my feelings. And so I could really study really hard, do things, grit, force my way through, which again, really helped me be successful to a degree, in my life. And so, again, varying degrees. But one of the things that she did that was super powerful was she would ask me really good questions. Things like, hey, how did you feel about that thing that happened? I'm like, fine, it was good. Right? Two favorite words of people, who don't want to deal with emotions: fine and good and okay. She's like, if that happened to me, I would probably feel this or that. Got any of that maybe going on? If somebody like made a remark like that to me in a meeting, I'd maybe feel maybe a bit upset or disappointed or frustrated, misunderstood. You feel like, no, not really. Are you sure about that? Maybe even a little bit, maybe a little bit. And so she would coach me in a way that sort of brought out some of those things. The other thing she would do was actually really kind of amazing, actually. Let's just say that early in our marriage, we had a lot of conflict, difficulty. We're learning to, 2 different people learning to live together and meet each other's physical, emotional, needs. She would do things like, that was not a really helpful remark. It would have been a lot more helpful if you would have said this, or something more along the lines of this would have actually been better. And so it gave me a chance to do a redo. It wasn't like, you're a jerk, why did you say that? Like, or various other colorful words she could have used, which, could have been fairly accurate, but she was teaching me a better path. Right. And so her patience and mentorship actually made a lot of difference. And now I had to combine that with some humility. Right. Certainly I had the motivation. I want to be a good husband. I want to be better at this. I want to be a better person. And so that combined actually helped me to be able to grow. And so anyway, those are some practicals that made a big difference. And then I had some other friends who definitely were more on the emotionally intelligent sort of spectrum, higher in that. And so just spending time with them and realizing, hey, emotions are actually really valuable. They're like data points and signals that allow me to be able to understand myself better and other people so that we can actually accomplish a goal, right? Like ignoring them is ignoring really important data points. And then the second thing is if I experience emotions, I'm not going to die. And I say that because that's kind of what I thought. If I feel really sad or I feel really angry or I feel really disappointed, I'm just gonna I was afraid. And practicing doing it, I was like, it's okay. It's still kind of unpleasant. That's why they're called negative emotions, but it's okay. It's fine. It's like running or jogging. When you first start jogging, you've never done it before, you feel like you're gonna die. You don't really die. It's just uncomfortable. And then eventually you can jog half a mile, then a mile, then 2 miles, and 5 miles, and you get better. And so, that's a bit of my journey.
Yeah, when you say 2 words, fine, good, or okay, right? Like 2 words, fine. And it reminded me, and I used to like important event, I go shopping for dress, and then I ask my husband, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? He's always good, fine, okay. So I agree with you. In some instance, it doesn't really help. I needed to make a decision with someone's help. Joke aside, I actually have a real question for you. One question really come from one of student who actually experienced with EQ, and the class that we're talking about here. And she left the class and asked me, say, Professor, I do wanted to get better EQ. The close to 5 people that you're talking about. And then she said, I have evaluated my surroundings. I think all of them are with similar EQ. How can I break through this? What advice would you give to her?
I would say, first of all, grab a good book and read it because that's going to give you some ideas. And there's actually a really good book that I would recommend. It's from Vanessa Van Edwards, and she founded this company called Science of People, and she wrote actually really 2 good books. Her latest one is called Cues, Cues, and it's really good. So she actually says that she's a recovering socially awkward person. And it gives really practical tips on how to basically, be more social and build relationships. And her first book actually is called Captivate. So Captivate and Cues. So for anyone who wants to just kind of get really practical ideas of how to build different relationships, pick that up and then start applying some of it and build some new relationships. The simplest thing to do is just join some kind of a social environment. It could be anything they're interested in. It could be a gardening club, it could be a tennis club, it could be something community, and or at work, right? One of the things I actually found is that at work, people are a lot more open to relationships than we think they are. Now they may be really busy, but I have one of the EQ champions did this thing called random acts of connection. He started this during the pandemic. He just reached out to somebody and said, hey, you want to just kind of get to know each other for 15 minutes? It's literally a random act of connection. And like 90% of the people said yes, because they also want relationships. So if you find some people, you're like, I think they're actually pretty emotionally intelligent, reaching out, building that connection, and, forming some new relationships. And I'll give you sort of a shortcut. A shortcut to being able to get coaching. And actually, I talked to Adam Grant, Wharton professor, really well-known author, and he gave this really great tip. He said, make everyone your coach. And the way you do that is by asking for advice, not feedback, but advice. So for instance, hey, I'm really trying to work on my social skills, or I'm really trying to work on my emotional intelligence, or I'm really trying to work on my empathy, fill in the blank. Can you give me 1 or 2 ideas that you think could help me? Just be quiet, listen, write it down, say thank you. That's it. Now, these are people who kind of need to know you a little bit. But you ask 5 or 7 people, you get some trends, you do it, and that will change your life, actually, because it's sort of tapping into the wisdom of the crowd. And the powerful thing about advice is that more people are willing to do that because it's forward-looking. It's not critiquing you in the past. It's also actionable. A lot of times feedback has its place. It's useful in the different contexts, various contexts. But feedback is by definition a little bit more critical. and backwards looking and may not actually give you ideas for the future. So anyway, the key word is advice, and that can make a difference.
I love it because you outlined a few things, right? I might miss because you said a lot of good tips. One is, choose a book that speaks to you. And actually, your website was shared with this cohort. And I found that there's so many resources on your website. So I highly encourage you for people to check out Rich's website and also the book that he recommends. There's a long list of book actually. And then, so, yeah, it's a testify to how much research you have done. And then I think the second thing you also said was, reach out. I mean, because it's a human-centered skill, emotional intelligence. And I think you just have to start interacting with people, join different groups and getting feedback and advice, right? So like start trying that. And I think I really like the last one you mentioned about reframing this feedback conversation as a give me an advice, help me to become a better version of myself. I think there's three takeaways. I mean, wow, that's super, super helpful. And I want to pivot a little bit to this professional setting because in this cohort, we have a lot of leaders, right? And they have team, they have organization. We also have future leaders. And you had such a successful and kind of unconventional story about how you build this organization within Amazon. And I'm curious about, have you encountered any barriers and how did you overcome that? What advice would you give to the leaders who is listening and watching this episode if they wanted to do something EQ related, build a community or spreading, this EQ intelligence with more people? Some advice from you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would actually frame the answer as if you want to actually have more influence in any way, shape, or form, whether it's for EQ or something else you believe in, this will be helpful. To answer your first question, did I encounter resistance? Absolutely. A lot of it. And that's because, we have a culture, different companies have different cultures. And in the corporate world at large, most people do not think a lot about social emotional skills. They just think about IQ and smarts, especially in this very technologically driven, environment that we live in. And so people tend to over-index on the IQ and not really understand the value of EQ. So I encountered a lot of skepticism from, hey, I don't have time for this. It might be nice, but this does not deliver results, all the way to what is this crap? I mean, we don't need this. And so, yes. And so what I did, and mostly it's because of lack of awareness, right? People didn't actually understand, first of all, what is emotional intelligence? How could it actually be valuable? And so what I did was, first of all, I framed it in a way that would help appeal to people's own goals and self-interest. Meaning, understanding what people's pains and challenges, hopes and dreams are, what they're actually trying to accomplish. And so instead of saying, hey, I got some EQ stuff, would you like some? I mean, no one's going to take that. It's more like, hey, what are the business challenges you're facing? What are difficulties that you're having that you think might be able to be solved with greater connection, understanding, human sort of element? And every thoughtful leader has an answer to that, right? I want to improve retention, or I want to attract talent, or I want higher, employee satisfaction, or I want to be more innovative. I mean, you name it. And then I'd be able to say, well, I've got some ideas that I think can help you out. And then the other side is bringing in lots and lots of science and data. I mean, you see the book list, you see all of it, because we're a very data-driven company. And I did not want this to be a touchy-feely thing. Like, I really feel like we should be nicer to each other. I mean, that might work at some places, but it's definitely not going to work at Amazon. And so it was really about data, right? And, I think being data-driven is actually really important for business, right? You don't want to just be feelings-driven, but the way that I talked about it is emotions are data. I mean, they are like really important signals that help you understand how to interact with your customers, with each other, with the people on your team, with your organization. And so to ignore that, we're doing it at our own peril. Yes, we need the analytics and the numerical, statistical, whatever, all the numbers. And we also need to consider this. And there's an incredible body of research around that, right? Whether it's from Amy Edmondson about psychological safety, or Daniel Goleman about long-term career success, or Mark Brackett over at Yale about the impact of emotions on your creativity and your focus and your, mood. I mean, all those, I brought in. So I realized I need to become really, really knowledgeable in the science so that I could actually help people. And you know what I found? Really smart people at Amazon. Almost every skeptic has actually become a believer because we bring the data, we bring the efficacy, we build on the success we've had, and really smart people who are curious, really want to understand how to be better. And so I've been thrilled. And I've also found that to be true outside Amazon as I've gone around the world, and we've engaged like over 100,000 customers across 10,000 organizations. I found that really smart people, when you actually help them understand how it will help them be successful and you bring the data, they're actually really open to it.
Yeah, I love that because I think you started with why you should care about EQ.
Yeah.
You tailored your answer to each of the organization or leaders that you had an opportunity to talk to, make an influence.
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. I have to pivot to my next category of question because so excited to talk about it. Otherwise, we run out of time. Here is, I want to talk about AI.
Oh, AI? What's that?
So, there's so many questions. Let's unpack some of this, right? One is, do you think AI can have emotional intelligence? Why or why not?
The answer is yes, but not like we do. So I think we all understand enough about generative AI. I'll talk specific about Gen AI. I mean, it is a statistical model. I mean, that's what it is. It like uses probabilities to decide what's the next word or what's the next line being drawn or what's the next sound. I mean, the statistical model, the large language model is pretty darn awesome. And it can come across and communicate back and forth in a way that is understanding, shows empathy, takes into account what you're thinking and feeling and saying. So yes, but it's not like us because it does not embody these things like we do. It does not have a physical body. And so our emotions are actually very physical, right? Like when we get angry, our face gets flushed, or our heart starts to palpitate, or when we get, afraid, like we get sweaty palms. It does not experience emotions. And so it depends on what you mean. So our experience of an AI can be that it does have emotional intelligence, but does it actually have it like we do? No. So it depends on the perspective that you use for that.
Yeah. What do you think are some unique human skills that will remain like human-centered and, not replaced by AI?
Yeah. First of all, I cannot say with complete confidence anything can't be replaced because I don't know the future. Will one day AI actually embody a cybernetic organism like a human? Who knows, right? Maybe. That being said, everything that can be automated will be automated. And so more and more we see a decreasing in the sort of analytical roles because, I mean, statistical analysis and business insights and even sort of like strategic planning. I mean, these things AI does really, really well and just gets better every week, basically. And so some of the things that absolutely are uniquely human, though, are true empathy and understanding. Right, as I mentioned, the embodied experience of emotions, especially the sort of more unpleasant ones like disappointment and sadness and grief and loss. Right, so there's going to be always sort of this desire for a human connection with people who've gone through it. Right, and so that's pretty powerful. And along with that is this idea of leadership. Right, wanting to actually be led by and work with people who do, again, understand us as a person, right? Again, I mean, raise your hand if you want an AI to be your boss. I mean, probably not, or your CEO. Probably unlikely, right? We want humans to do that, flawed as they are, right? And so that's, again, part of that. So those are kind of two big ones. I mean, things like critical thinking. I mean, AI at this point obviously does not do it as well as we do, like really understand sort of the nuances and things going on. Will that change in the days to come? Can't predict that, but I think that's actually really important. And then another one is conflict resolution, right? Can AI help? Actually, it can. But do we really just want an AI helping us like let's say you're in a spat with somebody, marriage counseling with AI. I mean, or geopolitical, sort of talks, having AI be the mediator. It's a little dicey. So they're obviously going to be these things. And interestingly enough, things that require physical service, right, where we want that human touch, is going to be again very, very important. And so again, I can't predict the future, but one thing I will say is the World Economic Forum did just release a report, Future of Jobs report. I highly recommend reading it. It's the 2025 Future Jobs report. And they talk about the skills needed today and by 2030 for people, right? And basically a vast majority of them are on the social emotional side, right? I mean, digital literacy, big data, obvious. But what they mostly indexed on were resilience, flexibility and agility, creative thinking, social influence, self-awareness and empathy and active listening. Those are the things that are going to differentiate us as humans. And I think it's important to be able to make sure that we grow in those, as well as working on our digital and AI literacy. That's kind of the obvious table stakes.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that report, because we just read.
Okay.
One
Awesome.
of us one of them just did a presentation this morning, and everyone is now even more motivated with Rich, behind us, and to read the whole report.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think watching those trends is also very important. So with like human and robot coexist, because AI plus us, how would you advise the leaders in this era to be a good leader?
Yeah,
What role does AI play in that leadership role?
so here's a really fascinating concept, right? AI, from what the trends are looking like, is going to move from tool to teammate. Now we jump on, whatever our Gen AI tool of choice, do our thing, and we may be good at it, we may be a novice, whatever. It's a tool, right? Like the internet, right? But AI is going to absolutely become our teammates. AI is a teammate already right now on this call. It's going to summarize the notes. It's going to give you insights. It's going to do some sentiment analysis. Like, AI is already a teammate on our call right here in a very sort of simplistic way. In the future, we're going to have AI as, hey, they're going to join our team meetings. They're going to speak up. They're going to ask questions. You're going to interact with them. Ethan Malik over at UPenn has done some, really interesting research on that. And what they found is that individuals who work with AI are more creative and successful than individuals who do not work with AI and solving some challenges. That's kind of obvious. But then teams with AI were more effective than teams without AI, and more effective than just the individual with AI. But the funny thing that kind of got buried a little bit in some of the report is that teams who used AI were also had more positive sentiment and a better mood. We're actually not only more productive, they're actually happier than ones without AI. That was a really fascinating thing. So it's some new research. We got to kind of dive deeper into it, but there's indications that if you use AI correctly and your attitude about it is, hey, it can help me be more successful, I'm going to be adaptable, I'm going to kind of figure out how to leverage this teammate in an effective way, that you actually wind up having better outcomes, not only sort of creatively, but also emotionally, socially. So again, it's a new field. We'll need more data, but it's interesting, right? Because again, what derails us on our teams? Like when somebody maybe talks too much, or somebody kind of feels a lot, or there's like conflict. An AI, if trained properly and used properly, can actually help us to work together a little better and communicate a little better, right? And so it's fascinating.
Yeah, I wanted to also maybe add another question about education, right? Because obviously, I think most of the education or institute, as far as I am aware, embrace AI. They're trying to figure out how do we integrate AI into education, right? Because that's the future,
Sure.
whether it's a tool or it's beyond the tool. But I also wanted to ask you a question. What do you think that education could do about EQ in
Yeah.
education?
Oh, wow. There is so much. So the world's sort of most well known or most used K through 12 EQ training is from Mark Brackett over at Yale. He's a colleague and friend of mine, which I'm honored to be able to work with him. But he created this thing called Ruler, and it's used by millions of K through 12 students around the world. So it's a framework of being able to just recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate your emotions. Ruler, that's actually what it spells. And so, something like that can be easily integrated into the curricula, right, of what teachers use. And, the results are really amazing, right? You get better academic results when you have higher EQ. And it's like, you know how to regulate yourself better, you know how to work with your teachers and fellow students better. You know how to like deal with these emotions that are affecting your ability to learn all the time. And so, of course, you're going to have better results, right? And so there's a lot of research about that. So that's one example. But to bring in AI, the reality is teachers are going to likely need to regard AI as a co-teacher, not as a tool. I mean, again, you extend this analogy, and you're going to have to be adaptable. We're all going to have to adapt and flex and figure it out as we go because no one knows the answer. But, when you go in, more and more stuff will be done by AI. And think about AI as a coach, right? A teacher only has a limited amount of time, a limited bandwidth, limited patience, limited energy. AI has infinite patience, wide breadth of knowledge, and can tailor itself to your learning style, which a one teacher cannot do with 30 students. And so AI will absolutely augment our ability to learn. And all the research has found that, right? The best way to learn is to have a tutor, right? Because they can personalize the gaps you have and the learning style you have. AI is a great tutor. And so if teachers actually leverage that, I believe we can up level all of our learning capabilities in a fantastic way. And so we need to democratize AI and make these, tutors available to everyone. And then even in the classroom, I mean, think about it. Hey, my co-teacher, you tutored all my students over the last week on various things. What are some areas I should focus on today to be able to help meet the gaps and make sure that I meet the needs of my students the best way possible? I mean, think about how powerful that is. And how are they feeling? Give me some ideas about how it can actually help them learn to work together better, or any of them, what's the kind of general mood? What are they thinking? What's going on in their minds, their homes? What are some things, strategies to help them be able to focus better and be able to be, more curious and interested and believing that they can grow? I mean, again, a lot can happen.
Here comes my last question before I open to the floor. I'm sure that this cohort has full of questions for you. My last question has twofold. One is, there's so much to learn. When we just look at the World Economic Forum, right, has like this top 10 skills, and we actually bucket them. Half of them are actually hard skills related to AI, technology literacy, and so on and so forth. But the other half are soft skills. So, if I were in the program, if I'm a learner that I'm still in the workforce and I needed to learn, I know it's a pivotal point, but I only have this much time, right? How do I prioritize that? Secondly is also, I don't have time for, learning the soft skill because the hard skill is, get me the job. I don't even have enough time and the capability to learn that. Yeah. But if someone does interested and, wanted to have enough motivation to learn, what advice would you give to them? How would they begin?
Yeah. So I will say the time thing is a legitimate challenge. But that's why we have to prioritize. I mean, we never have enough time. You will never find time. You have to make time. And that's why that motivation thing, I think, is important. And so I'd go back to kind of what I said. I mean, working on EQ and all these things, it's a lifelong journey. Start the journey. I mean, what's the best time to start it? Like now, right? And so because that's all you've got.
I'm glad you did not say yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. What's the best time right now, right after this call, right? So, take advantage of it as quickly as you can. And like I said, just start reading, start working on it, start practicing, and you will see compounding benefit, right? If I were to say one really, really, really key thing, though, is flexibility and adaptability. That is both IQ and EQ. right? There's cognitive adaptability, intellectual humility, all that. And there's also emotional adaptability, right? Like being able to kind of roll with things that are unpleasant and scary and anxiety producing. And so working on both is going to help you have outsized success because we don't know what the future holds. And so if I were just to pick one, that's the one I'd really, really focus on, being able to be comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty, become comfortable with discomfort. If we can do that, then we'll figure it out. If we can't, then we'll have this bias towards trying to keep things the same and we're going to be left behind.
Thank you. All right, so let's open to the floor. See, anyone has question?
What strategies are useful for convincing leadership of integrating AI tools into the workplace?
So I think there's some sort of very fundamental things, right? Like I said, the key is empathy, right? It's basically understanding what are the goals. And I always try to understand for leaders, what are their pains, challenges, hopes, and dreams. And you can also add values to that, right? Those 5 things. If we don't understand that, we're not going to convince anybody of anything, right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to really have a mindset of experimentation, because there's no right answer, right? Like you need the obvious stuff, right? We need business goals. It needs to add to the business and, blah, 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 like that. That's sort of basic stuff. But the idea is no one actually really knows the right answer. And so being willing to frame it as an experiment, like let's experiment with this. Let's do a pilot, or let's look at, different paths we can look at. Some call it probabilistic thinking, others call it scenario planning, because in this environment, you have to let the answers emerge. But if you can't rapidly iterate and experiment, they will never emerge. And we do have a concept at Amazon. You can look it up. It's called one-way versus two-way doors. It really helps us with that. Too many leaders think of things as a one-way door. You go through, it's irreversible. But if we can somehow do two-way door type of experiments, we try it. If it doesn't work, we can back out. You can actually have a lot more innovation, and you can make high velocity decisions with two-way doors and high quality decisions with one-way doors.
When you deal with people like that who are disinterested about a topic that is important, that you think is important, like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, again, it comes down to empathy. It's understanding what are they actually thinking and feeling, what is going on in their mind and sort of in their emotions as they react to it. And I will say something. I consider skepticism, disinterest, when they basically dislike something, or I consider it as a data point. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fascinating. Tell me more about that. Why do you think it's, what are you thinking about it? What do you think emotional intelligence is? Or why do you think it's not that important? And again, I try to understand, right? What are the challenges you're actually facing? And it may or may not be a fit. I mean, sort of a foundation of sales or negotiation, right? Like, I'm not trying to push something on you. At the end, it may not work and it may not be what you need. That's fine. But let me understand more about what you are experiencing and need, and it might be. And I will say a vast majority of times, it has been something that can make a difference. Maybe the timing isn't exactly right or whatever, but if I can understand their perspective, then it allows me to be able to offer something that might support their success. And so anyway, that's the key, I think.
I'm thinking about organizational change, and I'm wondering, you were talking about how EQ started with a series of early adopters at Amazon. You were doing a full-time job. They're all very busy. How I've got a group of people who have gone through a program on inclusive leadership, and I'm wondering, how do I leverage their excitement? How do I keep this going given we're all so busy? Do you have any tips on how you were able to?
Yeah. First of all is motivation. Everyone's busy. That's just a given. And you know what? Anybody who's going to do anything, again, you have to appeal to their self-interest. They have to get something out of it in order to keep on doing it, which is fine. That's how humanity works, right? And so I have like this team of 100 people all over the world. They're all extremely busy. But you know what they come and tell me? They say, in the midst of all the other stuff I do, often the highlight of my week is delivering this EQ talk because it's so meaningful. It's like the responses, the enthusiasm, the energy. I'm like, literally, sometimes half my job can be kind of crappy, but this is the highlight, right? And so there's that in sort of positive flywheel that occurs as they're part of it. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is, if you want organizational change, there are a lot of paradigms out there, but the bottom line is, when I think about EQ, you need ability, motivation, and opportunity. AMO. Right? Ability is the training and the skills. Motivation is basically leaders who buy into it and they make these behaviors expected, supported, and rewarded. It'll help you get to your goals by practicing it and doing it. It's not, controverting your goals. Leaders are modeling it. These are motivating. And then opportunity, right? People providing the space to be able to put these into practice. These are mechanisms that will allow you to be able to, whether it's speak up or show empathy or, disagree, things like that. And so figuring out that theory of change does have those three elements of it. But I think, sort of foundationally, we have a volunteer sort of army of people, and it's because they get as much out of it as they're giving, and building that in actually, I think, is a real secret to being able to have, lots and lots of people adopt something.
You talked about resistance, like how you handle resistance and when that shows up. You've also talked a little bit about introducing the concept of EQ to kids. And I'm curious about whether you have actual data or, anecdotal data about resistance to EQ across genders or cultures now that you have some worldwide experience. And what do you think are the biggest challenges to distributing EQ awareness and knowledge and tools worldwide?
My sort of North Star is I do want to bring emotion skills to 1 billion people where they're actually practicing it. No one's going to be perfect, but they're actually realizing how important and trying to embody it. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Obviously, we're doing trainings and I have thought leadership and things like the Washington Post, the Guardian. I have my website, I have all this. But we also have this thing that actually is in 600 million devices, and it's called Alexa Plus. And it is going to really be able to, I hope, have a positive influence on the EQ of lots and lots of people who interact with it in the days to come. Aid human flourishing and human relationships, not try to replace it. Because there are people out there who are like, yeah, AI should be your best friend. We don't need humans anymore. Yeah, not really in that camp. And so this idea, we can have an outsized impact, I think. And so, there's a lot of sort of mechanisms and tools and things out there that can reach a lot of people. So that's the hope. You can actually look up Mark Brackett. He's got a website, it's called Ruler, and you can find a lot of really great data about the impact of, higher EQ in schools and academic and all that. As far as, interesting thing, I will say this, from a gender perspective, the research is fascinating. Remember what I said, there are 4 facets of EQ. There's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. Different cultures and different genders tend to be higher in some and lower than others, average. On an average, right? Like, for instance, communal types of sort of societies, like a lot of the Asian ones, tend to be pretty high on the empathy, social awareness, because that's like, it's all about that, right? But, when it comes to like conflict, a bit lower. Higher on the sort of awareness of it, lower on the ability to actually, have that sort of disagreement. And then in others, maybe conflict is, hey, it's really high. They're actually pretty good at it, right? But they may not be able to regulate themselves as well. So it kind of depends. And then across genders, again, I may be stating a little bit of the obvious, right? Women actually do tend, on average, to be higher in social self-awareness and social awareness, but men tend to be higher on average for self-management and relationship management. And part of that's societal, part of that's a lot of other things, but that's kind of an average. And so the point is just, no matter where you're at, figure out, where am I strong, double down on those things, and where maybe could I benefit from growing in it, and work on those in order to achieve the goals that you have. And so anyway, I'll say one thing, I go to Japan a lot, and one of the things that they're trying to do is actually have more productive conflict. Like the companies I'm working, they're like, we realize that we're a little too agreeable, and, sort of like the decision by, committee. And they're like, how do we break out of that? And so I'm working with a lot of companies out there to sort of shape the way they work, not only in their company, but it's actually something that's like been a national culture for a long time. And so it's kind of hard to do, but there are a lot of really cutting edge companies that are realizing, okay, this is going to be helpful. And so anyway, just an example.
The other thing, we talked about negotiation this morning, and one encouragement was kids are really good at negotiator, you know? Like it's hard for you to say no to them. You know, they always keep asking for why, and they never give up. They're very persistent. Like there's a good quality of negotiator in kids. And I cannot imagine now kids wear this head of EQ, high EQ kids. Who can negotiate with them anymore?
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, the other really good negotiators are puppies.
Oh,
They
yeah.
always get what they want. So, you know, they're
Perfect.
really
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Yeah. So I like to conclude this session. It was a wonderful session. So Rach, thank you so much for the depth, the honesty, and the wisdom you have shared with us today. And your journey reminds that emotional intelligence, not just a leadership skill, it's actually a life skill. And one that empowers us to show up with empathy, lead with purpose, and connect in a way that truly matters. And also to our audience that you're going to watch and listen to this episode later on, take a moment to reflect. What's one way you can lead with EQ this week? Who might need your empathy, your encouragement, and your presence? If this conversation sparks something for you, let us know your comments, and don't forget to share it with someone who you could use a little more humanity in this leadership journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and lead with heart. Thank you again, Rich, and everyone.
Take care. Have a great rest of your day. It's been wonderful being with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.